Thank you for listening to the Music Production Podcast. This is your host, Brian Funk. And I want to tell you about my Music Production Club, which is a monthly subscription service that gets you new stuff for music production in your inbox every month. Right now, I have a super updated version of my 16-bit Ableton Live pack available to members of my club during the month of October 2020. It has 105 different Ableton Live sounds and instruments using the sound chip from the Sega Genesis. I'm also including my Super 8-bit sound pack for Ableton Live and my Coin-Op Ableton Live template. Both of those packs contain sounds from the Nintendo Entertainment System sound card. There's hundreds of sounds, and the Coin-Op template lets you create 8-bit music right away with no setup necessary. And our guest today, Tobi Hunke, is also known as the Ableton Drummer. He's offering a special discount to Music Production Club members on his Melody Trigger device for Max for Live users. It allows drummers to play melodies and sequences using their drum pads. It's a really cool device, and if you're a live drummer that is looking to incorporate Ableton Live in your setup, Melody Trigger is really cool, as well as all of Tobi's work at Ableton Drummer. So if you're a member of the club during October 2020, you'll get a special discount on that in your update email. And you'll also get the 16-bit Ableton Live pack, the Super 8-bit Ableton Live pack, and Coin-Op Ableton Live 8-bit template. Check it out at brianfunk.com/MPC. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Music Production Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Funk. On today's show, I have Tobi Hunke. And Tobi is also known as the Ableton Drummer. He's got his website, abletondrummer.com. So he's really specializing in live performance and music production centered around drumming specifically for Ableton users. And he's got a lot of really cool devices and blog with tutorials, courses, and he gives lessons and all kinds of things. But what I think is so cool is like the focus on drumming. So let's all give a nice warm welcome to Tobi, the Ableton Drummer. What's up, man?
Hey, Brian. Really great to meet you again.
Yeah.
After quite a little while, actually.
Yeah. This is nice to reconnect. A good excuse. Because I'm trying to remember what we were up to the last time we were speaking. I think maybe one of your devices had come out and we were just talking about that.
And we met at Loop in person in LA, and that's 2018 already.
2 years
November.
ago.
Yeah. Crazy. Time flies.
It feels like 100 years ago in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But it's really good to have you here to finally like just talk about things and say hello and all that and get your work out to the people listening. Can I ask you maybe a little background story of how you wound up as Ableton Drummer and some of your musical escapades of the past?
Yes.
Thanks.
It starts when I was 5 years old. I found a trumpet under the Christmas tree, because my father was a trumpet teacher. So I started playing trumpet, then moved on to drums, and then piano as well. And then with 14, 15-ish, I started to play in bands, mainly drums. And then I mainly played in DIY punk bands and toured Europe, small DIY shows, and then at some point, like everyone else, I was making music with, or the majority of people, they were doing something serious on the side, like studying medicine or don't know. And at some point, I needed to decide, like, actually what I like gonna do for a career. And that was when I moved to Bristol, England, to study music. And this was where I got in touch with electronic music a bit deeper. And and then I started to use Ableton Live. And that's like 2007, 2008. And and then I started teaching at some point Ableton Live, and still teaching Ableton Live and drums. And at some point I felt like, well, it would be cool to actually make a community for drummers who are using Ableton Live, because there are so many little things, little hints which took me quite a while to find out. And there are other people out there who were actually doing similar or the same stuff. So I started a community on Facebook called Ableton Drummer as well. And this is how we just got over 2,000 people last week. And we have some of the big names in there as well. And it's just a really nice thing connecting people there, and putting out your stuff there as well. So it's a platform for my devices and my courses, obviously, as well.
Right. Yeah, that's cool that you come from the background of like some punk rock and because so many people, I think, equate even just Ableton Live as like a electronic musicians type thing where you can make any kind of music you want with it. I wanted to ask you, since you have like a melodic instrument background as well, how that has shaped you as a drummer. I found that drummers that I've played with that are also musicians on, I didn't mean that to sound.
Drummers who are also musicians.
Are melodic musicians as well. I don't mean to say they're not musicians. I always said the drummer was the leader of the band. I just felt like they were the ones in charge of everything. If you have a bad drummer, you can't have a great guitar player or a great singer. I mean, you need that. That's a prerequisite. So no offense to any drummers. It's it's definitely, you know the jokes, I'm sure. But my question is, like, how does that affect your drumming? Do you find that gives you like a different perspective?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you're not only listening to the bass, because that's like the usual rock band concept is like lock in with the bass, and so just with the rhythm of the bass. But actually, if you're like understanding transitions from parts to parts, like in a musical way, not only in a rhythmical but tonal way as well, your what's the word, accentuation, and just your licks and your breaks obviously are being different because you're trying to support what's happening on the other instruments as well. So I mean, I think it's hard to say like what actually are the points here, because I can't compare it to me not having this in mind.
Right.
But yeah. But I know this, like myself, that some people are playing drums or even bass, like sometimes they make a break or something, and you feel like, what was that? What is that supposed to, like? It doesn't fit in there for me, and it's a very hard line between or supporting what's happening in the band and adding and supporting what the overall musical concept there is, than just showing off and doing without no meaning, like for the overall piece of music. But I don't know.
I think about it, I guess, I've experienced playing with some drummers that have that background, some that don't. But also, when I was younger, I started on guitar, and by some stroke of luck, my parents were the ones that allowed us to have band practice in our basement, which I still am forever grateful for, and kind of surprised when I look back, like how they put up with that. But I started just, while the drums were there for the week, I would sometimes go down and fool around with them. And I just found it really also helped me as a guitar player and like as a songwriter to just like understand what it's like to play those instruments and what they're kind of capable of, and how it interacts with what you're trying to do as a guitarist. And
Definitely.
I think you might have kind of hit it when you said it makes you were saying kind of more aware of like what you're doing for the song, rather than like, here's just something cool I could throw in here, which I think guitar players and any other kind of musician can be guilty of too.
Always. always. Yeah, but I think it's you need to limit yourself, but it's kind of a struggle as well because you have other musical ideas as well, and you can't necessarily put them out on the drums. So this is kind of where Ableton for me as a drummer comes into place because I have one music project where I'm actually like I can play a bass line with my kick or a melody, and I can just like I have it all automated and it's played to a click, so I can easily just like play wherever I want to, but playing melodically as well, but just playing the rhythm, but triggering melodies or bass line in this case as well. So that's like but there was kind of the urge where I wanted to go with Ableton Live as well from a drummer's perspective, being able to play more melodic, more tonal, you could say so. And yeah, this is kind of how I got into Max for Live as well, to like extend this to the next step, really. Yeah.
Right. I think you've like found some of the limitations that you run into as the drummer, and or just as anyone really, but like having the Max for Live knowledge that you can just kind of say, okay, well, if it can't do it now, we will make it into something. I kind of remember one of your devices, which was kind of cool, was it's kind of solved the problem of like the simpler device, like looping inside it. Because when you trigger a sample inside of any of Ableton's sampler, it will ultimately fade out, even if you set the release to maximum and in the amplitude envelope. It'll still eventually fade out, like slowly over time. I thought that I forget the exact name of that device, but that was just like a great idea for exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, the idea is like of the device is like actually to make, instead of using clips to switch on loops and switch them off, using a drum rack and then just nest simpler devices in there, and then just having like note on signals coming from a MIDI controller or from a drum controller to switch them on and off. And this is some of the limitations of like drum modules, electronic drum modules, that you usually only get like one signal, and this is just a note on, and the note off is generated per default by a time. You can time preset, you can put in, like it's just sent after, but you can't like change the off signal on most drum controllers. So so this is a really easy but really useful device, because you hit it once, you get a note on, and it ignores the note off, and you hit it the next time and it gets a note on, but this converts it to, the device converts it to a note off. So this way you are able to use a drum rack for looping stuff, and that's like it just a bit more flexible than to MIDI map everything to clips, and then the note is like in this Ableton Live set, the note is sticks to that clip slot. So
right,
not much flexibility here. So yeah,
you can keep everything inside one drum rack and not have to have it interfere with any clip launching.
Exactly.
Yeah, I can see that being really useful. I think it's cool that you're focusing on drummers too, because I've noticed in a lot of situations, it is the drummer that's operating the playback, and the backing tracks are kind of back there, like a little table or something.
Yeah.
And that seems to be like your focus, like helping make that job a little bit easier for people.
Well, it's one part. I see like 4 categories of Ableton drumming, and this is like one category being like the playback engineer, and I'm not sure why. I'm just guessing this role is often taken over by the drummer because he or she is like starting the song with like counting in anyways, and it's like has a lot of control when the band can start or to slow down or gets the click, etc. So yeah, I think like 80-90% of the cases where the band is operating backing tracks themselves, it's the drummer doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's definitely a big part like of Ableton drumming. But yeah, other parts would be using Ableton Live as a drum module, and which is like becoming more and more interesting. And I think there's going to be a bigger and bigger shift from actually having hardware modules which are having the sounds in there. This gonna move more and more towards to using VST solutions and using Ableton Live, for example. But there are some limitations in Ableton Live, especially for that. Ableton Live doesn't understand polyphonic aftertouch, or can't recognize it. So if you're using a drum cymbal, for example, you can choke it. Like the newer ones, you can like put your hand on it, and then the noise get cut, or the sample gets cut. And this is usually being sent as a polyphonic aftertouch, sending like all the notes off from the cymbal. And Ableton doesn't recognize this. Like so far, Ableton can't is not able to process this MIDI signal.
Now, let me ask you about that specifically. If I'm triggering an electronic drum cymbal, is it sending the same note on different MIDI channels? Is that what's happening, so that they don't like cut each other off?
If you're hitting it, it's sending, let's say, like a C#2.
Mm-hmm.
If you're hitting it on the bow, if you're hitting it on the edge, it might send a D2. Okay, so far everything's perfect because this MIDI note is just being sent via your drum module into Ableton Live, and you can like put any sound you want on it. But if you then have an electronic cymbal which is able to is choke the right word? Like, yeah, it's called so. Choke.
Like a drummer hits a cymbal, then they grab it to just silence it. Yeah, exactly. We'll do choke. That works for me.
Yeah. So like choke is the term which is being used in the drum world. So when you choke a cymbal, the MIDI signal which will being sent is like a note off on the C#2 and the D2, but it's coming on the same time. It's not like two note offs after each other. It's like a certain MIDI signal, which is like, it's not only a note off, it's like polyphonic aftertouch. And this Ableton Live so far is not able to process the signal. So there are ways to do this. So I wrote a Max standalone application, which is actually understanding the signal and is then sending just single note offs to Ableton Live. So, but this is like running just for this one thing. Yeah. You need to run a separate application, which is not really useful. So there's some stuff with the Sealy, with the C-board, Rolly C-board. They're using polyphonic aftertouch as well, and you have to put it into different chains. Have you tried this, or have you played with it?
I did try one for about 5 or 10 minutes.
Yeah,
like a synthesizer place. It's pretty cool because it's like the squishy, rubbery keyboard looking thing. If you're not familiar with it, the Rolly C-board, it's a MIDI controller that it's black, rubber looking thing in the shape of keys. But what's special about it is where you press on the key. You can move up and down the key to create different MIDI messages and expressions. And then you can even slide across the keys and it'll just stretch the notes. And I know that's all done with polyphonic, different kinds of polyphonic expression.
Polypressure or something, yeah.
But Ableton doesn't have that. But I've seen solutions that involve about like 16 MIDI tracks that will listen, I guess, to every channel and send it all to one particular, which is a little clunky, I would think, if you're trying to keep things tidy in your live projects.
Definitely.
I know. Polyphonic expression is one of the biggest requested features. I mean, I don't know the data or anything, but whenever I look around, that is like, for some people, it's the deal breaker. It's very requested. I would kind of imagine that might not see the light of day until maybe a push sees that. I think if I'm being a business person, that might be the way to introduce it. But yeah, that's
good thought. You never know. You never know.
Yeah, you do never know because they don't really tell you. I don't get the secret.
Bet they don't know. I bet they don't know.
Well, it's got to be a challenge, because now you've got this software which has really evolved over the last, it's like 2 decades now, more or less, and so many people rely on it for their live shows, and sometimes it's a very specific feature that they rely on, and if you change that can be devastating to someone's live performance, and it could be the very thing everything hinges on. And you also don't want to make it too clunky, because that was something that always drew me to live, was that it was pretty smooth and streamlined. It felt very nicely organized.
Yeah, but I mean, it's the same. I mean, there are so many Ableton Live users. I think it's like 6 to 8 million estimated. I heard this number somewhere. I'm not sure if that's like, and of course there are a lot of needs, but like from my perspective, if I want drummers to use Ableton, to start using Ableton Live, and they might have an electronic drum kit. It's like one of the most sold instruments at the moment, especially now during Corona, I guess. And if you put like a really, really good VST in there, and you can like have amazing sounds, even like with a really cheap electronic drum kit, which doesn't has multi-layered sounds, but as soon as you plug it into Ableton Live, you have multi-layered sounds like to a very, very far extent, and you have like some really cool drum session drum packs which are multi-mic'd, and you have access to like 4 mics on each drum, like different recording, like close to the head, back of the drum, overheads, etc. Plus you have those multi-sampled, but then you can't like dampen your cymbals. So this is like really like, oh yeah, it's like, I understand that if you have so many users that you need to focus on maybe your main market group or main target market, but it should be like, really from my perspective, it should be like top of the list to just put this in, because it's just a missing link, which is like taking people off using it for this purpose, I guess.
Yeah, well, I spoke to Roger Lynn on the podcast back in January, I believe it was, and he's of course all for this kind of, these kind of features, this polyphonic expression. He's got his Linstrument, which is super cool device that it's very similar to the Seaboard in a lot of ways.
Okay.
And it looks kind of like a push grid, but you can do all kinds of things like sliding across notes, and that'll create like very expressive vibratos and all kinds of more natural movements that you might do on an instrument, maybe like a guitar or a stringed instrument of any kind. And I guess that is where the future is heading, I suppose. MIDI 2.0 is supposed to have some of these features. And I guess, the technologies come out and then everything has to kind of catch up a little.
What do you know about MIDI 2.0 so far? It's hard to get like...
Well, I think there's a website somewhere, the MIDI.
It's MIDI.org, I guess. It's like the MIDI organization.
Yeah, I think they've put out like the specifications. I don't have it by heart or anything. Because, I mean, right now that's still like, I guess, one day that'll be the thing. But it is exciting that we can get some of that extra expression and, as you play a guitar, I mean, every little movement you do affects the sound. And I wondered if that could also kind of increase the difficulty level in some controllers, maybe, just if they're that sensitive. Like right now, you can kind of get away with just banging on a key or a pad, where if you even have a piano, you just press the button, press the key, and it makes the sound very nicely. But on a guitar, for instance, you don't just pick it up and go bung. You have to learn about pressing it down and all that kind of little subtle mechanical movements with the pick and. But I think it's exciting, and as you mentioned, like some of those drum sessions packs that they have are so expressive, even without any of that kind of stuff already. So I can only imagine where we're heading with some of this stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting times. I mean, there are so many small companies putting out like little things on Start Next or some crowdfunding campaigns, and I just ordered this. I forgot the name, but you got a ball which you can like throw on the floor or against the wall, and it transmits a MIDI note via Bluetooth, and depending how hard you throw it, and it bounces back. The velocity is changing to higher, so it's more like a gimmick, but it's just like I'm doing every summer. I'm going to Tuscany to do music at a circus, and I just thought,
Nice.
yeah, it's perfect.
Yeah.
We already did some stuff with the Kinect, so someone is juggling, and the Kinect, like his armpits and his movements are translated into MIDI notes. So we did this for one show quite a while back. So and yeah, I'm always interested in like new performing ways of like how can you actually do the thing you are doing already, like juggling, playing drums or dancing or whatever, and put this into like translate this into the digital music making world. And there are so many things coming up, especially on the drum world. You got the sensory percussion sensors. Have you heard about those?
I think I've seen a video on something like that. Can you tell me about that a little bit? That maybe transforms the sound into MIDI? Or?
It's well, usually like the standard pickups you're using for getting a MIDI signal or producing a MIDI signal are like those Piezo Pickups. Those are the most used, and they usually have a little foam cylinder, and then you screw them or put them on your drums, and so they are getting a signal when you're hitting the drum. And usually, or the most they can do if you're just using acoustic drums and put a drum trigger on there is like it can detect if you're hitting the skin, the head, or if you're hitting the rim. And then some can, like, depending on your drum module, it can detect if you're doing a rim shot as well. So this is how far you can go, like with the normal standard triggers at this point. There are other technologies, there are FSR technologies, but they are usually used for pads and not for actual acoustic drums. So, and the sensory percussion from Sunhouse, they have a different approach. It's a small sensor, so it's a small microphone actually, and you send it into a software, and you train the software to the different regions of your drum. So, if you train the software well, it can detect up to 9 different zones on your drum. If you're playing the shell, if you're playing the rim with the tip, or the shaft, and then this one can be. They have their own like software where you can put samples on there, or you have presets for samples, but you can send the MIDI signal obviously from this software to Ableton Live as well. They even have like a plugin for Ableton Live, so you can use it inside Ableton Live. And this way, just to give you an example, if you're playing a drum in the center of the head and then going towards the edge, like you have so many steps in between, you not only have like center and edge. So with this software, you can actually do a blend. So you can have like one MIDI note being sent when you're hitting the center, and one MIDI note when you're hitting the edge. And if you're playing in between, it's like blending those two notes, the velocity of those two notes. You can actually mix two sounds, or you can do some velocity chaining in Ableton Live, and you can get like a lot of different triggering a lot of different sounds just using those two zones and playing between those two zones. So this is this is like a pretty advanced, or the most advanced if you want to translate acoustic drums into MIDI signals or into the electronic world and trigger like stuff in your computer with it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. I mean, that must open just so many possibilities up, where it must start getting kind of complicated as what you're doing with all that information, because that's producing quite a lot of information if you got a few different drums on the kit and your cymbals. And
it's
yeah, go ahead.
It's really hard because on one side, I mean, and that's like, I didn't do much music for the last 2 years, to be honest. I was just doing Max for Live, and it's like a lot of people are saying this in the Ableton scene. Like, if you start it, it's like going down a rabbit hole, and you like because you explore like stuff which you can do, and just for example, simple example, using the velocity, translating the velocity, how hard you hit a drum, to note length or to pitch. Or whatever, or map it or to certain controls, and and it goes on and on and on. I got like over 60 unreleased devices, which are just doing those little things.
Yeah,
and it's just overwhelming on one side because that's a great idea. Yeah, I can do this. You can do that, and then like it's kind of like you're in the rabbit hole for like 2 days, and then you get it working, and it's like, or even like 1 and 2 hours to get it working. But to release a device, you have to do a manual, you have to do a video. And the problem here really is like when I'm doing this and I show this to people, or I put it up on the internet, it's like maybe 5% of the people who are watching it are actually getting what it does and are able to translate this into their own musical creative world. And so I kind of feel I need to do a lot of translation work here as well. And it's like people who are drummers or other performers who are using Ableton Live are having like so many different perspectives on Ableton Live. So that's sometimes really like really hard to kind of like offering stuff which is like suitable for everyone,
Yeah.
or like just even people are getting what you're talking about. Like, so it's a bit nerdy and it's sometimes a bit lonely. So that's why I started this Ableton Drummer group as well. So there are actually people out there who are understanding how awesome the stuff is you do. So yeah.
I can relate to that 100% because
Perfect.
with the stuff I do, whether it's the podcast or making the packs or tutorials or I don't know, teaching, throw it all together, right? Like, where is there time to make music? And I've wanted to learn Max for Live for a while, but this is what you said is exactly why I'm not doing it, because it's just another rabbit hole to go down. And plus there are people like yourself out there already doing it. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to leave this one for now, at least, to the people that are doing it. There's a lot of people doing really cool stuff. And then maybe I can make a song once in a while. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But I get
to.
the same feeling too sometimes when I do a pack, and it's like, all right, how do I explain what I did here? Like what? Sometimes it's easy. Sometimes it's the last one I did. I'm sampling the Sega Genesis's sound card, so that's kind of straightforward. Some of the other ones, I recorded this synthesizer to a VCR, and now I'm making instruments. So okay, but then there are ones that are like a little weirder. The one that stands out in my head was called Spiral. And what this one was is I was using the looper, and I'd like loop a guitar note, then I'd loop like another note, and then I'd like reverse it and then start playing other. So there's all these like instruments going, then sample that and put it on the keyboard. And it's like you play one note and you're really getting this weaving of different instruments on usually the same note, but maybe at different octaves. And I was like, how do I explain that? Like, what do you call it? Like, and then like, how do I like let you know that this is like a really cool thing that you can do, but it's a very tough thing to explain. But I think your job is even way harder than mine, because a lot of times, I've seen some of your work and looked at the videos and stuff, and sometimes it's hard to tell what is happening, and it's not through any fault of your own. It's just that there's, like you're saying, there's so much information going in to the computer, so many different messages that, and then you hear it and it all sounds really nice as it's working. And it does take a lot of that, like, okay, so let's take a look at what's going on here. And on top of that, everyone, I'm always amazed by this, everyone uses the software in a different way. Everyone has like their own little twist on it. And to find something that fits that, that's got to be challenging. And there might be like something you come up with that's just perfect for you, but someone might not work in that way, might not even have that understanding of that path as possible. So I feel your pain on that.
I mean, you must have this situation like when you're teaching that like people like, I mean, there are at least, for everything, there are at least like 3 ways on how to reach a certain goal in Ableton Live. Just for example, you could use Max for Live or Max for Live devices. If it's not for something which is not natively supported, you could use CliffX. You could use like ISC driver routing, sending MIDI out and MIDI back to just to get control of certain things you can't access natively in Ableton Live. Just so, and I mean, they're all 3 really different approaches, and they take some time to understand the concept. So sometimes it's really hard to decide, like when a client is asking me like, I want to do this and that, and I thought I go this route. And then they're always, or a lot of the times, they're already on the path to asking certain things about this one path they want to take, but it might not be the right path to take. Maybe it's like much easier to just do this by just use this Maxwell Live device and don't start using CliffX if you not need CliffX for anything else. And it's always like teaching when teaching a software, it's like really like you need to understand the thought concept of your client or of your student. Like what is his or her approach? What is his or her understanding, her method of using Ableton Live, for example? And I don't know, would you agree that it's like, I think this like the most, or one of the most important things when you're teaching Ableton Live is understanding like what kind of system and your student is using for Ableton Live.
Yeah, a lot of things have to be almost figured out beforehand, I guess. Like what capabilities do you want to have? What are you going to rely on the computer for playing back? Is your set going to be mostly I'm hitting play and I'm playing along with it? Are you going to be making loops from scratch? Are you playing live instruments, singing? It's all a consideration, and it is a funny thing because you can find yourself going in one direction only to realize about halfway through, like, oh, we should have started over here, and it's almost better to just start over and try again. I have like my live performance setup that I've been working on, for 10 years, I'm sure, that has evolved and grown and changed. And I used to have this feature, and now I realize I don't ever use it. So now I got rid of that. And sometimes it was way more complicated than it ever needed to be. And sometimes it was much more bare. But there are times where I just decide, you know what? Just not even going to use it. I'm going to start from scratch, just to get that fresh perspective.
Yes.
I'm going to, because I do notice that the way I have it set up kind of influences how I play and how I write.
Yeah.
And for the most part, it's a good thing. It's an instrument, essentially. That's how I see it. It's just an instrument I've designed. But there are times when I think like, there's just too much going on here. Let's go back to the drawing board. And plus, what controllers am I using to interact with it? That sometimes is where things change a lot. I found that once I sort of had a setup of like, I'm going to use these controllers, and I'm going to kind of almost use their limitations to help me through it.
Yes.
For example, the APC-40 has 8 tracks. And I decided I'm going to use the APC-40 to launch my clips. So rather than have to go left and right and up and down to navigate through my set, I'm just keeping 8 tracks. And that's just my limitation. And like, that was a huge breakthrough. And then just the table I have, I always talk about my table. It's actually this table right here. It folds up nice, and it's adjustable height. So it's like a nice countertop height, so I don't have to bend over too much. And folds up, I can carry it easily. And that became my limitation of like how much stuff I'm going to bring. It's going to fit on the table. I also want to be able to carry it all in one shot so that if I have to park far away, which you always have to do in New York, I can bring everything to the club and stay with it.
Yes.
And then bring it all back and not have to leave anything behind and worry that it's still there when I come back. But that was like, it sounds like maybe not so much, but it took me a long time to get to those places. A lot of trying things out and realizing that didn't work. This is kind of ridiculous. I have too many things. I don't have enough things. I think the thing you have to do is just try, just start, and you'll come across the roadblocks and speed bumps and holes in the road along the way. But I don't think you can necessarily foresee all of them.
No, you can. It's a development, but I mean, that's what good when we teach, because we made this experience, so we can like point it out to students or to clients, saying like, well, actually, do you really need this? You're gonna use this tool, which takes you one more cable, one more plug, one more socket, another processing of your computer, and you're using this for one tune in like 30 seconds. Do you really want to use this? How much is this thing like adding to your performance? Or do you just want to resample it and don't bring this extra thing to the gig? You know, it's just taking it like the question we asked ourselves, like after 3 years of taking this extra thing to a gig, and like after 3 years actually saying, I don't want to take it, I just resample it. You know, it's just giving this question to students and clients and saying just like, yeah, you can decide this, but you know, make a decision about this. And that's like, how we can support people and like with our experience and like passing this on. So
That's a hard thing to realize on your own too. Because I've gone through that where I've had a certain thing or a certain feature in my set for ages. And then one day you just think about it a little differently and you question it. And it might be obvious to someone on the outside, but then, like you said, like, yeah, you know what? I'm carrying this extra thing around that's annoying and I barely use it. Like, I could just cut that out right now. And sometimes that's the best feeling when you're like, I don't need this. I don't need it.
Yeah,
get rid of it.
I think it's partly like, or I had this with a lot of things which I was just really proud of to actually make it working. And like I was doing like a solo live drum and bass mashup performance. I was bringing my vibraphone. I'm playing vibraphone as well, by the way.
Oh, cool.
I was bringing my vibraphone, and I had a joystick synced up to Ableton Live via Maxwell Live device to like change pitch and different audio effects on it. I brought a small electronic drum kit. I brought a puppet, mannequin, which I cut the head off and put a TV screen on it and recorded myself before the gig. And then I was interacting with this screen person. Wow. I was so stressed out, like setting up this stuff. I mean, it was a great show, but all the setting up and being like stressed out, if everything is working, if you have so many things, you need to check all of those. And if you're playing like a festival stage or something, you don't have like it's not like a jazz club where you have like an hour to set up and to do the sound check. You need to be ready in 10 minutes, maybe, or in 15 minutes. And even if you manage to do this, it's one of the most important like minutes or times to prepare for the gig, to get into the mood and to be present and to be with the audience, to be like to get your attention right. So everything which is like putting you off of this, you need to really prove if that's what you really need to be present on stage. Because if something isn't working right, or you need to plug in another cable during the gig, it takes off your attention from doing music. And I mean, there are little things, and it reminds me of a funny story. Because I have this Ableton Drummer Facebook group, and people are asking questions like about little functions in Ableton Live. And one person was asking like, is every time when I'm turning up to a gig, I start my computer, I start Ableton Live. He was just running backing tracks, so really easy, but a drummer. But the metronome, the click is always switched to off when you open a live set. Is there a way to change this? And I was like, yeah, easy. So I was looking it up, and it's kind of like, no, you can't. Like just natively, it's always off. And you can't save it in a template. You can't save it like as in an Ableton Live set. You can't save it. It's always switched to off. So what I wrote it was a quick fix, just a small Max for Live device, which is looking like, is the metronome on or off? And if it's off, it sends out a signal to switch it on. So it's just like he's turning up to the gig now, he's switching on Ableton Live, and he doesn't need to worry about the metronome. So it's a winner from his perspective. From someone else's perspective, it's kind of like, well, where's the problem? Just switch it on.
Click the button. Yeah.
Click the button. No, just MIDI map it and have it on a controller. But it's a very good example to show like, yeah, but if you just want to turn up to the gig, you want to load your Ableton Live set, and everything should be just to press play. Then this is one thing which is not there. And it's a really good example because it really shows like it could be those little things which make things just very easy.
Yeah, well, you're getting it to the gig, right? You got to set everything up. You making sure you brought everything. We've all spent hours on our backs on the floor connecting wires in a studio. Now
Yes.
take that live where maybe there's a lot of commotion. You don't have a lot of time. Maybe you've got people that are like trying to talk to you while you do it. There's just so much that can be going on. And I could definitely imagine that where I'm like, all right, I think I'm set up and like probably just finished in time and we got to play now. And I hit play and I'm like, I don't hear anything. Where's it? And then the music just starts, you know? And we're not ready because we didn't hear the click. And it was one button that I forgot to press. But that's your first song. That's the beginning of the show. Like that's devastating. That could be enough to just get you off your game for the whole rest of the gig. That's a funny example too, because you're right. It doesn't seem like something you really need to care about until you get in that position. And that's like, you have to sort of experience that.
Yeah.
I don't know that you would really think of that unless you were showing up and making that mistake, maybe at practice or something.
Yeah.
That's funny.
So, yeah, and that's what I love Ableton Live, Max for Live for, because you can like just, and that's maybe the same like I was saying earlier. There are so many different understanding systems people use, especially for Ableton Live, but for software in general, but especially for Ableton Live, because people use it in so many different ways, that you can easily write your own, not easily write your own plugins, but easily use like a Max for Live devices or Max for Live stuff to build stuff which goes into your Logic or which flows more into your Logic. So there are a lot of things you can do by, like, for example, melody triggering. If you're sending in one note from a drum pad or from a push or from an e-piano or whatever, you're sending in one note and you want it to trigger a melody. So natively in Ableton Live, you would need to use a random MIDI device. So set it up to 100% and then put in the number of notes you want. And then if you put in the note, it will go one semitone up, for example, if you set it to up. So you have like C, C sharp, D, D sharp, for example, 4 notes. You're playing a C in, next note gonna be a C sharp, next note gonna be D, next note gonna be a D sharp. So after that, you need to put a scale device to actually repitch the C, C sharp, D, D sharp to the actual notes you want to play. You want to be triggered. So yeah, and this way you can do some melody triggering, put in the melodies, but just setting this up is like it's like for us. I mean, I know I can tell you this, and that's easy to understand for you because you know the MIDI effects and you know what they do. You have used them. Okay. But for someone who's like opening up Ableton for the second time or something, it's kind of like, what? I don't want a random note. No, I don't want a scale. I want a melody,
Yeah.
So it's and you don't see the piano roll, so it's not related to anything like visually in Ableton Live. So this is so it's kind of like a lot of translation to do to explain this to someone who's new to MIDI effects in Ableton Live and is maybe not like that able to abstract or to make this abstract thought.
Yeah, everything you just described is like advanced features on those particular devices.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's possible and it works, but it's like it's not really easy to learn. It's not very accessible.
It must be limited too, right? I mean, there's only so much you can do with that. You can't really get maybe the exact melody. If you've got complicated melodies, I'm sure that gets pretty tricky with just those devices.
Let me think. I think it's you can
like if I want to go up a note and then down a couple. And
exactly. Yeah, this would be just like step by step.
Yeah,
and maybe with some chaining as well. But I mean, I took this example because I just wrote this melody trigger device.
You have a solution for this,
which is
melody trigger,
like exactly that, and it's like took me like maybe I had a beta version which was just a modification from a device from Max for Cats, a trigger tune, which is free to download. Check it out, and it does exactly that. And I did a modification where you can actually use your playing velocity as well. And then I did a modification where you can use your live duration as well for notes. And then I think I did this like 2 years ago-ish. And I did this modification of this device. And then a couple of months ago, I was doing it from scratch. And I put in like everything other drummers, people who were using this beta mod I did, they were saying stuff like it would be nice to actually like re-trigger the same note, like when you're like playing a melody, and on the third step, maybe with another pad or with another MIDI input, you want to re-trigger the note where you actually are in the sequence, or going back steps as well, or jumping to a certain point. And I put all those things like in mind, the feedback I got, and wrote this like quite flexible device, which is you can actually like import MIDI notes from clips, so you can just do a sketch in session view, put in your melody, put in your bass line. You could trigger chords as well, but then you would need another device because it's not putting out notes. It's not putting out chords, but it can put out notes, and those notes can trigger chords, obviously. But and just do this in session view and then just import it. You got 16 like sequences up to 64 notes in each device. So you can be really flexible, and you don't need much more to trigger stuff live without the click, and just playing melodies with your push or with your drums or whatever, sending MIDI notes.
Well, that's got to be one of the great things, right? Is now you're not stuck to the grid or the click. You can actually, I mean, as a drummer, right? Like that's where so much of the feel happens. When you get the click going, everything tightens up a little bit. It gets a little stiff. But that's a really cool solution if you want to have a little more humanity and a little more flexibility with your timing.
Yeah, and if like I mean, it's kind of like when you're playing to a click, you're not necessarily, but often people are playing to a set arrangement as well. Maybe they have like 4 parts in scenes of the tune, but yeah, a lot of the feeling gets lost. I mean, I have setups where I play to a click, and you can do really nice stuff there as well. You can automate the pitch of your incoming MIDI note, for example. But yeah, I wanted to be able to just play and express without having stick to. And yeah, and it's just I'm preparing for a gig I'm gonna have in December, and I'm kind of like for quite a while now. Like I said earlier, I didn't write that much music for 2 years, just like remixes or stuff I got asked for and paid for, but not like sitting down and doing my stuff that much. And yeah, and now I'm like nearly every day I'm going to my rehearsal space and just having this presets of things, and I'm exploring while I'm playing. I'm jamming with myself, and I'm like every time I play it different, in a different tempo, different accentuation, and I'm like exploring new things while I'm playing, and I don't have to stick to a certain set, to a certain tempo, to a certain arrangement.
Right.
And at the moment, that's the approach for me at the moment, which is really like creatively and musically fulfilling. Yeah. So it's, yeah.
That sounds exciting, and you got your feel, and you're getting to play with all your toys now. All the stuff you've worked on, you've got a chance to actually use.
Oh man, it's so hard because like it's like you're sitting there and then you're really like, oh, it would be cool if this could do that as well. And then you're, I could like quickly try to, and like, no. It's now music making time. Like write down this idea and like, but stick to making music. It's kind of like, you need to be like you need to be kind of straight to know which zone are you in now. Are you in like writing music, or are you in developing technical things? And well, for me, I need to like focus on that, because otherwise I'm just gonna sit there and gonna be excited about changing and writing new Max for Live devices, which is great as well. But if I'm going to a rehearsal space to make music, I need to focus on making music, actually.
I get the same problem too, where I'm writing and it becomes a sound design adventure. And that was the thing, that one of the reasons I got into making some of my instrument packs was so that I can do that, get that done with, so that when I'm actually trying to make music, well, now I have these sounds to work from. And
perfect.
And, you know, a lot of times it probably happens with you too. I would imagine, where you're working on something, and for me it might be a sound, and for you maybe it's a patch for Max for Live or something, and it just starts inspiring you. And while you're in that zone, you get pulled out of it just to make music with it, because they're just fun to play with. It's
not happening that often for me. It's more, I can do that, and you can do that, and you can do that, and it's like going on and on into the
well, I think it's important to have those like sessions, like I'm doing this now, I'm working on this now we're doing this, and just a little bit of I mean, you know, I think if the most beautiful song pops into your head and you're doing a different thing, go with that, you know. You know, when you get inspiration, you got to chase it, but
always.
But it is sometimes good to have that intention that, you know, we're not going to worry about this aspect, because that's a whole other mind space.
But I mean, it must be like difficult for you, because you're putting out a pack like at least every month.
Yeah, pretty much.
And so it's kind of like you probably get your ideas when you're doing music or seeing a toy or something, and then kind of like you're experimenting with it, and then is it a switch for you to like, oh, actually I could make a pack out of this, and then you are like in pack producing mode, or how does it work for you?
Well, since most of my pack making is revolved around the music production club that I have, it's usually the end of the month, and I get into that mode, all right, I gotta start putting something together. Sometimes I'm kind of gathering things as I go up until that point. So maybe I'm collecting samples or recording certain sounds. So it's kind of like a phased process a lot of times where maybe I'm gathering sounds, sampling things, or just experimenting with what I could possibly do. But then there is like that, I'd say like that last week of the month is where it's like, okay, now I'm making this thing. And I like that actually a lot because I know kind of when to switch modes. I know when to turn on all right, now I'm doing sound design stuff because I have to, or else I got a bunch of people that are going to be upset with me, And it's a good motivation. It really is.
Yes.
The social pressure and just trying to uphold my end of the promise is a great motivator. And I mean, some of my favorite things have happened because I've had my back against the wall and just like once in a while, I don't know what I'm going to do. I have a list of things and ideas, and sometimes I go through those lists and I'm just like, nah, I don't like that anymore. This isn't turning out how I thought. It's not as cool as it seemed like it would be, or like the idea just doesn't go as far as I thought it would be to kind of justify. Some things you do and it's just like, all right, that's really it. There's not much more to do with that. That helps me. That having that, that's definitely a help. I don't know if I would go into that as disciplined without that.
So it helps you to have this deadline to,
it's probably probably like if you have a show booked. I'm kind of the same way with that. If I have a show booked, like I know, like, all right, I better start working on this. And I've had the experience where I did not do that. And nothing will teach you like that. Like you can get warned all you want. You got to prep, you got to make sure you're ready. And I did a show once that I talked about it on the podcast. I just didn't prepare for it enough. And honestly, like listening back, I liked it better than I thought I was going to. But my experience of actually performing it was some weird mixture of like terror and anxiousness and fear and insecurity. Like it was just all of these like terrible emotions. I wasn't confident there, because I didn't spend enough time preparing. I mean, that's like, it's such a big difference when you show up and you're like, I know what I'm doing and I know how to do it, compared to like, I hope this works.
So now I'm curious, why didn't you prepare for this show? Do you know? Or were you busy, or you weren't motivated about the gig, or is it had a bad time?
So it was no, it was kind of important. It was at my good friend of mine runs a video game expo, like a retro video game expo on Long Island. And so it was his show. Now, I think one thing to consider was I was also like the sound person for the entire weekend. So there were other bands playing and, I was also playing music, just more like a DJ. And I thought it would be cool to do like video game based music. So I was using like, samples from my Nintendo. I was using some of my own packs, it was exciting for that. I think I overestimated my ability to write material and learn it in a short amount of time.
Right.
I kind of thought I might be a little improv-y to begin with. But as I started getting into it, they started being more like songs, like with separate parts, which kind of meant I had to be a little more like I needed lyrics, I needed to actually be saying something when I'm singing. And it just kind of, it got a little bigger than I was ready for. And I procrastinated too much. And, that's the bottom line. I mean, I really, the truth of it is I just waited too long to start getting ready for this because it takes a while, and whereas even like my other the set I kind of do more often is I still need to practice that. I can't just show up and think I can do it. Like it takes practice and like timing and everything, but I've done it. I've gotten good at it.
Yep.
That even if I haven't done it for a little while, a couple days and I'm back in the groove. But when it's something new, so it's a lot of preparation, and I think I probably had this thought too before I ever tried to do it myself. But when you see someone with a laptop, there is like a tendency to kind of think like it's doing all the work. And, all you got to do is kind of hit play and it's just not the case. Like it's an instrument. That's how I see it. It's an instrument that you have to learn and practice.
Yeah.
So an experience like that'll teach you. Sometimes you just need it.
And how do you deal with the aspect of like you have to be your own boss? Or what I mean is like, well, you said like you're from a band background as well, so you have rehearsal times, you have like set appointments, you have each other who's giving you feedback and say like, oh, this part wasn't tight or that was cool. And you don't get this feedback when like from the outside when you're performing on yourself. You just have yourself.
Yeah.
So how, like what are your techniques with that, or how do you deal with that situation? When do you know you're good enough?
That's mostly just recording everything. That's one nice thing when you're using live, you're already in the recording software. So it's usually just a matter of hitting the red button.
Right.
So I record everything and then I'll listen to it in the car when I'm driving around or just review what I've done. As far as like the discipline goes, like you're right. Like when you make an appointment, like we're going to play Thursday at 5, like that's what you're doing. I think that a lot of times I'm willing to do it, so I can just kind of be like, all right, I got some time. Let's do it now. But it takes that doesn't always work or last. So
Of course.
I do have to say, like, kind of a lot of times, like before, maybe the night before, the day before, I just sort of think about like what I want to get to tomorrow. And, this, all right, I'll work on this thing. I'll try to get this done. I need to catch up over here. That helps me because I definitely can get caught up in this, like, I have 2 hours of free time and I kind of like pace around the house. What am I going to do with myself for these 2 hours? I could do this, and then I don't commit to anything and run out of time easy. So I keep lists, and just chip away at them. But it takes discipline, and then to be critical of it yourself. Like I don't know. I think I just need to hear it again. I need to listen back and just little by little that way.
And I'm struggling, or it's a constant struggle with yourself always. I think I think there are only a few creative people who are really, really good in like structuring like towards a goal. But I see this with a lot of clients who just have this perception of it. Yeah, I just quickly want to do my own live set and I want to play a gig in 2 months. Yeah, okay. How long have you used Ableton Live for? Yeah, I just bought it. And it's like, interesting. Okay. So what I'm trying to say is like a lot of people don't have this perception of like actually it's an instrument or it's similar to an instrument. You need to practice, and then you need to be a composer as well. You need to be a producer as well, and then you need to be a performer as well. So and besides this whole different creative musical roles you have here, you have this like you have to be your own boss. I don't have a better description for it in English right now, but like you need to like make appointments with yourself. You need to set deadlines with yourself. You need to make decisions yourself. How are you going to play this part? It would be really nice to make it like this, but it might take 2 hours to get it right. Do I have the time or not? And this is like, it's quite a challenge, and it's quite like a social thing you need to learn, and which I just think it's really important to let people know that it's like it's a long journey to be able to do this, to cover all those roles and feeling great doing music and creating something on the same time. And yeah, being a nice boss to yourself.
Yeah.
Just so, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a way to think about it, you know, like kind of like being a boss of yourself. Because you are sort of like dealing with, as you said, there's a lot of different jobs that probably more traditionally would have been a lot of different people helping you. So you do have to commit to that time. And it's hard. And that's, I think, one of the things I ran into with that one gig I was talking about. Because I was building a whole new live set too. That was the other thing I was doing. So, I mean, I was starting from scratch. You know, I mean, I have like, but there were probably things I borrowed. I had a lot of the sounds ready, and but it was a lot to do in a short amount of time, and it certainly wasn't enough time to actually get good at it. You know, I basically got it together and then took it out that day, pretty much. And and like I said, it was better than I thought it was. But my experience was not enjoyable at all. I couldn't wait to be done. I like really couldn't wait to be done. And it was just because I had no confidence in it, so that if anything went wrong, I'm like, oh, they must have seen that. They must know I don't know what I'm doing here. And I'm thinking about that instead of what I should be focusing on, which is actually trying to do this.
Yeah.
It's tough,
Yeah.
and it's not.
It's a tough game.
It's exactly like learning an instrument, except you also have to build it first. You have to make the instrument. So it's hard, and it's not a good idea to think you can just show up and, you know, load the program on your computer and, you know, turn a few knobs and you're good to go. It's not like that. And you know what? If it was, though, like, who would care that you could do it?
Yeah.
You know,
Exactly.
if I could just open it up and be like, okay, I'm ready to go, like, then everyone would be doing it. It'd be nothing. It wouldn't be impressive. It wouldn't be a challenge. I mean, I do think that is part of what makes it fun. Like, I'm sure you get a kick out of solving these problems for other drummers and yourself when you come across them. Like, all right, like, it's like a crossword puzzle or something. Like, how do I get to this? How do I figure it?
I mean, it's so fulfilling if like someone is posting a performance of him or her playing some drums and triggering some melodies and doing some stuff, and you're like, wow, that's awesome. And then this person is like, you're commenting, wow, that's beautiful. And then this person, yeah, I'm using your devices or your device or devices. It's like, wow, you know, it's like, it's really like you build an instrument for someone and someone is doing really, really good, beautiful things with it. And it's really fulfilling. And so it's really motivating on keeping doing that and helping, supporting people to be creative at this. Yeah, with this, it's similar to the feeling. Like for me, it's a really great feeling to make people dance. So and this is not gonna happen too soon, I guess, because you can play shows in Germany now, but you're not allowed to, or the audience is not allowed to dance, and they have to sit. These are the regulations at the moment. So so
strange times, I know.
Strange times.
But you're right. Like, I mean, it's great you're able to solve your own issues and do your own performance, but to have someone else then find a way to express themselves and get their ideas out. I love it when someone sends me a track and says, "Oh, hear that sound? Like, that's your piano." That I'm like,
yes!
What? Like, no way.
Yeah.
And it's an awesome feeling. It's just so cool to see what someone else would do with that sound. And those are like the greatest emails when someone sends me a track. It's like, oh my God. Like, sometimes I can tell, sometimes I can't, but if it helped in any way, that's amazing.
Yes.
Yeah. So the community is a pretty cool thing. I actually haven't checked that out on Facebook, but that's nice that you've got that aspect too, where because I'm sure, I do it all the time when I have an issue and I'm trying to find something, how to figure out how to do something. I'm looking it up somewhere, but that specifically for the drummer, that it's like, here we are, we're drummers and we're trying to figure this out. I mean, that's gotta be, I'm sure you've probably learned a lot yourself.
Yes. I mean, I started it as a marketing tool for my online courses. And then at Loop 2017, I guess, in Berlin, I just made a post in the Loop Facebook group saying like, hey, if any drummers want to meet up, we can meet like at this and this cafe. And so a few people came and were still in contact. And this was the point where I was like, well, actually just open this up to everyone and just see what happens. And then I actively wrote like everyone I was seeing doing stuff with Ableton Live and drums. I was actively like writing those people and saying like, hey, we started this group. Do you want to join? Do you want to contribute? And so obviously there are not only drummers in there, especially because I released those Max for Live devices now over the last years, and people who have questions about certain devices are coming in there, or people with different backgrounds than being drummers or finger drummers, for example, as well. So it's still it's a mixed crowd, but the majority are drummers or people who are related somehow to hitting things and doing Ableton Live. And and it's just great because as I said earlier, you sometimes people are like, oh, I've seen this guy, he's doing this and this, how is he doing that? And then this person is in the group as well, and you can just tag him and say like, well, do you want to answer it yourself? Like, and then you can really make those connections because it's not such a random Ableton Live group where you have like posts on about tracks and a few answers are coming like every week. You have the same answers and stuff, which is part of the thing in a Facebook group, I guess, but it's not so random in our group. So this way I get the impression people are more interested in if something is happening there, and it's a lot of great knowledge in there, and I learn a lot there. So same like when teaching always Ableton Live, I learned something new. But people are putting in questions, how to do this and that, and I'm like, oh, I've never thought about this. How do you actually do this? And and it's a resource for a lot of my Max for Live devices as well, or
Oh, I bet.
just
Yeah.
like yeah.
Learn
So
ideas and
yeah, and I visited people. I got in touch there as well. So yeah, so it helps me or it helped me to travel and to meet new people as well, and to get connected. I'm not so sure about Facebook, to be honest, in the future. It's kind of like I'm thinking about starting a forum. On one side, I'm like, yeah, it would be great because then you would be independent from Facebook. Um, on the other side, I feel kind of like I really like that it's like people are on the platform anyways, and they can just like
yeah.
join or ask a question. So it's a bigger step to join a forum.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm kind of not satisfied with the search and with like giving away all your data and just being so dependent on what Facebook decides, like how they're gonna
Yeah.
deal with your data and how they're gonna like which features they're gonna have, etc. So I'm not really. I don't know if anyone has an idea. Drop me an email or get in contact. I just think it would be, yeah. Somehow I think it would be better to have like a forum and to move away from just platforms which are dictating you what's happening there or not. I
Yeah.
don't know. How do you feel about it?
Well, so I think you're hitting on an important point in general. You don't want to keep your audience dependent on like some platform that could change its algorithm tomorrow and ruin everything. I've found the best thing is email. As far as like get an email list, that's something you have control. I mean, back in the day, I was in bands. We were trying to build up our MySpace page, and a lot of good that did us, you know. And it was like, it was almost overnight. Like all of a sudden, no one was on MySpace anymore. Like what
Yeah.
happened? I don't even really know why. It was, I guess, Facebook came but that was at that point it became clear. Like, all right, you need a website, like your thing, but still, like people have to go there. They're always going to their email. So if they sign up for something and you can get an email, I think that is the best way. But I did have a Facebook group for the Music Production Club for a while. I was never really so big on spending a lot of time on Facebook myself.
Right.
So, and I also found like the group got a lot of, even though I had like questions you had to answer beforehand, a lot of like,
Spam.
yeah, a lot of people that weren't really music producers were getting in, and accounts were all of a sudden doing things. And yeah, it got a little spammy. And I didn't like that you couldn't have like categories, you know, like it's just one list of posts. So I moved it to Discord, which I didn't know anything about. I had to learn it. And at first it was a little bit of a curve there just to understand the platform. But now that I've been on it, I like it. So there's the Music Production Club has its own Discord, and we got like a category for like sharing music, got one for collaborating. We got where I put like our live updates, what we're going to be doing like in our classes that we do online. And it's been nice, you know. I think the trade-off is probably, you know, people are already on Facebook, like you said. So learning Discord, I probably would imagine that some people just didn't go over to that. But on the other hand, I really wasn't doing much with the Facebook group, and it was just becoming this thing I had to like check for spam all the time. And I wasn't, and I didn't feel like anything that was getting posted there was really getting seen by anybody. It didn't seem like much interaction, but the Discord seems much more active. So I like that, but yeah, I would recommend to anybody, like get your own website and start building an email list, because you have control over that stuff.
Of course.
And you know, you just don't know what's going to happen to any of these platforms. I mean, TikTok right now is in jeopardy in America.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so,
last Sunday, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it got extended a little bit, but
yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I think if anything's going to destroy the world, taking TikTok away from people, they're going to lose it. That might be a bad decision. But, you know, like, it's something that you have no say over. You know, if you've built a platform on TikTok, say, and then whether it's the company that changes or something with the government, or who knows what can happen, like you don't have any say, and you could lose all that hard work. I mean, Facebook was great for a long time, where you could post something and everyone that liked your page saw it. But then it became limited, and now you have to boost your posts to reach more people, which, you know, I'm not faulting them. Like, you know, it's a company, it's a business, it's their platform. But if I was relying on that, you know, all of a sudden, like, boom, like I just lost my reach.
Yes.
So
no, definitely email lists. Obviously, I mean, I have one as well. But on the same time, this is like one-way communication, you know? It's like, if you're putting out your stuff, and I'm in your newsletter, obviously, as well. So if you have new stuff, like, or every month you're putting out your pack. But I'm really looking for like a better idea for community building. And I've thought about Discord. I've never really got that much into it. But just being able to have categories, for example.
It's nice.
And I mean, there's definitely a lot of ways on how to solve. I might go the forum route, I think, because then I can actually have it how I wanted to.
Yeah.
Have categories for Max for Live device, maybe have like the different Max for Live devices, manuals and questions on their examples and tutorials, and then having like a flow of questions and answers, like, I don't know. And I'm not sure, but a forum is much more work than starting a Discord server, for example.
Yeah.
So you never know, and it's a lot of time for to invest. We will see.
Yeah, I know. That's a tough question. You know, if it's working for you on Facebook, that's great. I mean, there are a lot of good communities on Facebook that are run well and have great content. That's actually the main reason I go on Facebook.
Yes.
For the few that I'm into. But it's tricky. And it probably depends on the audience too. You know, each platform probably attracts a certain segment.
Yes. So where do you see the music production course in 5 years?
The music production, what was it?
Production club. I mean, the music production club.
Oh, the thing that I do. In 5 years. I'm worrying about next month right now. No, I think, I don't know. This year I've tried to make an effort to make it a little more community-based, a little, like, it's mostly been, here's something I made, here you go, have fun. But I am trying to build it a little more with that Discord, especially, and also doing like live classes. So I've been doing like 2 a month. Usually there's a topic and it's a Zoom meeting. And if you're in the club, you can be in the meeting. And then I just put everything on YouTube for anyone to see.
Right, nice.
I like that a lot. I love doing that. That's a lot of fun. I've also been trying to work with other companies too, to like expand some of the things I'm giving away. Clevgren gave away their reverb 1 month in the spring, which was
Got
great.
this one,
Yeah, Cleverb it's a super cool reverb. So Baby Audio was involved in one month where they have their magic switch they were letting me give away to the club.
Yay.
It's been awesome to do that and just expand my relationships with some of these companies too. Because something that happened, and this is kind of ties in what we were saying before about having time for making music. I was getting some offers to do like tutorial videos on products and product reviews. And it was always like my least favorite part of what I was doing. I mean, it was cool to get something new to play with and learn about it, but the video production has always been a little tough for me, and that's not what I'm really into. So when I do that stuff, it's more like video production, and it's kind of time intensive. So it was always a burden. So I was trying to find a way. I still wanted to like work with these companies and get the word out on some cool things. So I was able to, with a few people, a few different companies, able to say, hey, look, I got this club, I got this many people, and I'll promote you on the podcast. I'll do my best to get the word out on you. And they were receptive to that. So I'm into that look where the club can kind of be a little more expanded like that. And I'm not out of ideas for packs and sounds. I still love doing that. So I'm looking to keep that going. But yeah, I don't know. Who knows what's going to happen next with anything. 5 years is an eternity. But yeah, I think like something I've seen about your work that I think is cool is that, and I think you say it in your bio even, like there's a lot of people out there teaching music production in Ableton Live, and you went like really specific for drummers and performing with drums even. And I like that lane. And for me, I guess I've sort of seen my like sound packs as I'm going to give you like something a little weird, I guess, and a little quirky, where like you could get that baby grand that was recorded in the high-end pristine studio. You probably already have it in your DAW, but I want to give you the one that I have in my living room that's 100 years old, and it sounds a little weird, so that's, I guess, the way I always kind of look at what I'm doing. I'm trying to get like these idiosyncrasies and these weird characteristics to my sounds that on some level might even be undesirable. Like you don't really want to have, if you're recording something, like I did a pack with micro cassette recordings, those little cassette tapes that people used to record their ideas on and talk into. So I was recording instruments, and it's the worst way I could think of to sample something, But once you start putting it inside the sampler and you manipulate it with some effects, a little delay, and like now it has an interesting sound. And that's the kind of stuff I'm into, like giving you something that's like just a little different. A little weird, because I could never make that baby grand anyway, even if I wanted to. And it didn't exist. Like I just don't have the gear. I don't have the patience, the studio. Like I just don't have that. So I try to embrace like what I can offer. And I think a lot of people should do that in their work. Kind of let it be what it wants to be a little bit. Instead of fighting it all the time, trying to get everything perfect.
There's
a balance, obviously. Like you don't want to just make everything sound like garbage, but
no, but I just thought it's like sometimes, or like I don't know how it's for you, but like the majority of people who want to learn to use Ableton Live want to produce like EDM stuff, or so it's like for me, it's sometimes it's a little bit disappointing when you have a course, you're teaching a course, and then it's like 80% of them wants to do the same. Obviously, they don't want to do the same, but it kind of feels like, well, there's so much more you can do with this, and like all what you're trying to do is like learning this instrument to play the tune like just a little bit different. But you're not like, I mean, obviously, if people are into it, people should do what they want, you know. I'm not like saying, well, but it's just like from my perspective, what I'm like excited about is creating something new and like using like breaking the boundaries, or like you said, like doing something quirky, doing something different to what you already have heard. And not just recreating something after this formula or after that formula. I mean, obviously you're always influenced by, but like the stuff, what is really sticking out always is like new stuff. Maybe it's good or maybe you don't like it, you know. But it sticks out. And if it's just like recreating stuff, it's a little bit boring for me. But I mean, obviously that it's a question of taste and stuff, but it's just from my perspective, it's just like, wow, you can do like so many things with Ableton Live, and it's mind-blowing, and it's like new, and it's like something different. And then someone, or the majority of people who are coming to study Ableton Live are like, oh yeah, I wanna play some techno like this guy 5 years ago did, and how is he doing this sound and that sound? And it's like, yeah, okay, that's your interest, but man, there's so much more to discover. I don't know. Do you know what
I know
I
what you
mean?
mean, but I feel like I've seen that change a lot in the last few years. So, I mean, when I was first using Live, everyone I talked to thought, oh, that's for DJing or that's for electronic music. And but I was like, no, actually, like, I mean, yeah, it can be. And you know, I maybe even myself, like just getting used to the concept of like loops, where like maybe I'd record my acoustic guitar during the verse and make that, and that was now a loop or a sample even. You might even think of it that way. It took a minute for my head to get around that. But yeah, I mean, like I was always kind of like big, especially to like my circle of friends, like, no, like you can do anything with this. You can make any kind of music. It's just that that community has kind of taken to it, you know? So I think it's been changing a lot from what I'm seeing. Now, I'm also probably drawing a lot of this from the class I teach at Berkeley, which is a sampling class based around Ableton Live. So I think just in its nature, it is encouraging people to think a little outside of the box. So they might be making music that's a little different. I mean, I still hear the influences of the time, whether it's like right now, a lot of lo-fi hip hop type of stuff is really popular. And I'm not hearing as much of like drum and bass or techno as I did before. But I'm hearing a lot more people just with acoustic instruments and doing creative things with them in there and combining the electronic with it. So I would say it's getting more interesting than maybe it was a few years back.
Yep. I would agree, definitely. Yeah. Definitely.
But I think that's like kind of always the way it is too, you know. I'm sure like, you know, if someone gets a guitar, everyone learns the same riffs. You know, if you go into any Guitar Center right now, I'm sure you could name the first 5 songs you'll hear anywhere in the world. You know, someone's doing Stairway.
Yeah.
You know, someone's playing Smoke on the Water. And like, I'm sure that goes on.
Yeah, true.
Still.
Really too. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's just, and I don't want it to, I always want to engage people if they want to get creative and want to learn something and want to express themselves, and even if that is Goa or trance, which is really not my music. It's just too compressed, too flat for me. But of course, yeah, if you want to do that, I can show you how to do that or what I know about it. It's just like from instructor to instructor. Like, do you? I wanted to ask you, like, if you get this, like, that sometimes you're thinking, like, well, actually, but there's so much more exciting stuff you could do. But yeah, okay, that's not your interest. You just want to do this type of music, and yeah, especially like DJs. Yeah, I want to do something more live, and that's big part of people who are like coming to me, and or some, like, if you just do a normal Ableton Live course, then that's quite a lot of people who are like into learning that because they want to add something live to their DJ set. So
I think a lot of that's good for a beginner too, though, to learn
yes,
these stuff that might have been done before, or this formula. I mean, with guitar,
obviously,
I've learned covers. That's how I learned,
yeah,
you know?
yeah,
So I think there's some value to that at
definitely.
the starting point. And then getting curious. All right, well, okay, I made 12 of these songs now, so now what? I think that comes with some time too.
And it's all a question of taste, and I'm not
Yeah.
like judging people on what they want to do with it. It's just like, my expertise is really on perform, like using Ableton Live, creating an environment in Ableton Live which suits your performing, your performance, your aspects of performing. So I usually work the most with people who have an idea, who have an artistic idea, and then trying to get this, like, technically and like on an emotional and comfortable way for them into a setup which suits them to perform and supports them to perform. And that could mean like creating a Max for Live device which puts on the metronome automatically, so per default. So just, little aspects could be really important for that. Yeah. And that's what's really exciting for me when I'm working with people on their ideas and getting those come true and to something which fits into their thought and understanding and their system of using Ableton Live, and there's like what they feel comfortable with in performing and in their performance, in their way of performing, you would say.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure that's exciting because you're helping them realize their goals and kind of help lay out the path a little bit, and then, I mean, each one must present its own unique challenges. So, I mean, that's another thing. If you crack open anyone's live performance set, they're all kinds of variations. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I've done that. I've shown people, and sometimes someone will say, like, how come you don't do this here? And I'll be like, oh, I never thought of that.
Yeah.
Like,
Exactly.
I never,
Yeah, same.
like, this is something that takes effort that I have to do every time I play that isn't really exciting. It's not like a fun gesture that I'm doing for the crowd. It's just this like practical thing. I have to hit this button before I start singing, or else it's going to sound weird. It didn't really do anything.
Yeah.
But sometimes, like, someone just points something out.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, yeah, that would make more sense. It's a thing to consider, like, how does it look? when you do this thing live? Because sometimes, like, one of the issues I think with a lot of like live electronic music is it's a little hard to tell what they're doing, and it's hard to sometimes see the and hear the result of their physical movements. If you're playing the drums, I'm watching you hit it. I'm seeing that person sing and strum the guitar. But sometimes if they're on like a pad and they're turning a knob it's not always easy to tell what's going on. So I think those are other considerations too to have.
Yep.
Like I made a decision to hold my microphone, in my hand, a regular mic, rather than a stand or some kind of headset. And I just felt like that was an important like expression thing. It was physical. I could get in there and I could walk away from the table if I want to. I can hold it out to you while the song's going on. And then there are other people that will put on the headset and they want all their hands free. And maybe it would be easier for me if I had my hands free in some cases. But, one thing I can remember doing, because I have to hold the mic, is I would be like singing and I'd like trigger the sample and maybe turning a knob at the same time. And I came up with this thing where I would just put my elbow on the keyboard, like, and it didn't really matter which sample I triggered. It was all white noise. So it was just it became like a thing, like one of my friends like, oh, it's cool how you did that. And didn't matter where my elbow landed, just that it was on that keyboard. But again, it was like kind of like a performance thing,
and the important thing here is, I mean, people can't see this on the podcast, but just the move you made, like your expression on your face when you showed me, like holding the microphone in my hand, there was already an instant expression of like how you feel about what you're doing now, what you're singing now, what you want to express. So and so what I'm on about is like it's about how do you feel comfortable, and not in the way of like it needs to look good, it needs to be a performance, it needs to be like how do you get the feelings you want to express in your music or via your music. How can you visualize this? And it's like it's the same with like the subject we had before. People are pretty much into and then you do this knob move and you like move your whole body just turning this one knob. Right. If it feels right, do it, nothing wrong with it, but it's just something. It's replicating something which has been done it's a concept already there, and it's fine, but if that's what you want to express, fine. But it's really like be open of like what, like how do you feel good on stage? How do you feel good to your music? If you're a person, you want to move a lot, can you play drums? Or like just one example, I have this project where we do like Balkan breakbeat, electro swing stuff, and I just felt like I want to move more. So I'm playing. I moved to standing up when playing drums, so I play stand-up drums. So this is quite a limitation because I can't do hi-hat open. My left foot needs to stay on the ground because I have to play the kick, and I can't play the kick as well as I would sit. So there's a musical limitation there, and it takes away a lot of the little things I could do with my kick drum. But I want to dance. It's dance music. I want to move. Yeah. I want to jump sometimes, so, and I can't do this when I'm sitting. So, and this adds so much to the music and why I'm making this music. And so it's, and especially with computers, when you're using computers for your performance, it's so important to find a way to be connected to your body and to feel the music and to resonate to the music. And yeah, if you can't do this with a headset, then headset wouldn't be the right decision. If you only can do it with a headset because you want to make some moves with your hands, then it's important to use a headset. And that's so important. And then how it looks like, yeah, whatever. If it feels right for you, it's gonna look great because it's what you want to do, because it's what you feel. And then the people who will like it will follow you. The people who won't, yeah, they don't. So what? They don't get it, like what you are doing. So you need, like, this is like, you need to follow this, like, your thing, what feels right for you. In your performance. And there is no written concept, especially for performing with computers and MIDI controllers. And that's, yeah,
there is no way to do it really yet. I mean, that's kind of the cool thing. It's also the scary thing and difficult thing.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, it would probably make more sense if I sat down and had a stand and, looked at the table, and it probably, I could do more. But I just felt like having that freedom to move. I could be laying on the floor singing if I want. I could run out from behind my table and come out, and I always talk about my table, but having a table that was like stand-up height, countertop level, what a difference compared to like bending over the table and hunching your back. And like you can move, you can dance. And if I'm playing in a band with guitar, like I'm moving all over the place, I'm constantly bobbing up and down. And it's very physical. Even just strumming that guitar is physical. And you can kind of lose that sometimes with electronic music and like with, say, a push or a keyboard or just some knobs and faders. You lose that like physicality. And standing up and just dancing around a little bit kind of brings it back. You get that energy, especially like, I mean, if you are making like dance kind of music, like that's how you know if it's working. Like if you're moving, like if it's not moving you, then it's failed. It's dance music. So I think it's important to like get that physical part right.
And even if you enjoy sitting and playing some hardcore 140 BPM techno, I don't know.
That's not wrong to do that either. Yeah,
it's not wrong to do that either. And then like, so but it's a performance. It's like, and that's like, maybe you can make it look quite intimate, or I don't know, like, but you need to find a way how it's gonna make you feel right and enjoy it at that moment. And then the rest will come automatically. You will get ideas when you're playing what feels right, what feels wrong. So
a big one for me, which in a lot of ways when I think about it feels like a contradiction, but like I could never really figure out how to make the guitar feel right in this, like as like a one person show. I've tried to weave the guitar in, and there's an organic real world instrument if I want to bring life in, but it always just kind of felt like I'm only really doing this to show you I know how to play guitar. And there's something about like when you have a guitar and you're in a band, you can interact with the other bandmates, you can move around like that. But when you're by yourself, it doesn't have that same thing. And also if I'm playing my guitar, like then the music is just a loop. So I'm not able to really do much to the music.
Right.
But then again, like take a look at someone like Moldover, who's got his Robocaster, I think he calls it, and he's got the MIDI control, and he does a performance with his guitar the whole way through, and it's great. But for me, I just couldn't. It just didn't seem worth it. And then again, it's another thing to carry along, and another consideration there. But I just in the beginning when I was trying to visualize what I was going to do, I would have thought the guitar would have to be in there. That's like maybe an aspect of something that I do that makes me stand out a little bit. But I haven't found that way yet. It doesn't feel right.
Yeah. I reminds me of like I use the Wiimote to control some stuff in the music and the lights as well, and was playing in front of crowd, and I was feeling so proud that I managed to like control everything with the Wiimote, and I had a little light sword on it, so like and then it was kind of like 2 people of, don't know, 150 people were getting it and were coming after the show and saying, wow, that was cool, like using the Wiimote. And the rest of the people might have thought like, why is he moving so weird to the music?
What is he doing?
What is he like? What's that? It's like light sword thingy, GD style. Like, I don't know. So I was even if they didn't thought that, it gave me the impression I didn't feel comfortable. So I was like, well, I don't think it's the right way for this particular thing I'm doing here. People don't know what people don't get the performance. People don't understand it. So what I did was, I got a Wiimote, like a Guitar Hero guitar. And I don't know if you can see this. No, not quite. But so it shows it's a guitar. It's actually not a guitar. You just have five knobs on there. You can sync up to launch clips or trigger MIDI notes or whatever. And you have a XY you can use as well for changing, don't know, phaser or chorus type thing. But people understood it because it's a guitar. There's some music coming from this, even if it's like, it's just a plastic guitar. In the end, it's just the Wii itself. But that was just a little thing a big thing I learned. Like, actually, if people can relate to it as a musical instrument, then it might work as a performance and as a show gimmick thing in your performance, just to use this. And so it worked perfect. Like, and you use it for one tune, and it's a little gimmick thing, and you can play a bass line or drum and bass tune and walk through the crowd, because like the Bluetooth, like if the crowd isn't too big, it's working quite well, like up to 10, 15 meters. And so you can like do, nice things with it. And so, but like just the Wiimote itself, it doesn't work, or for if you're not playing a nerdy music conference.
Yeah, that's something to consider too, I guess, right? Like who's watching you? What are they going to appreciate? And yeah, I know what you mean. There are some considerations. There was a device I had at one point that was a sensor you connected to your hand, and you can. I mean, it was cool, but like I couldn't figure out a good way to use it, and it felt like a gimmick, and I couldn't decide what to do with it. Awesome technology, it's amazing. It was sensitive, it worked well, but it just didn't work. I don't know. You just sort of have to try it, I guess, and see, like you said, how it feels for you. Because I've seen people use those things, and like when you were talking about the circus performance, I mean, that sounds like a great use of that. I actually kind of felt like I was pretending to be like some kind of musician or circus performer when I was doing it, but it didn't fit that context. But like what you're saying with the Connect stuff, with the juggling, and that's pretty cool. But that's an entirely different sort of application.
Of course. And then you're more like doing some juggling or having a performance, and you're adding electronic, which translates to music. So it's a different thing than like doing a music performance.
Right.
You know,
juggling in itself is a talent and interesting to see.
It's a different concept there. But I know this, like I have so many ideas of what nerdy cool things I could use for my performance, and I just like over the years I found out actually it's much more important to focus on things like you said earlier, like I only want like stuff I can park my car and go to the venue and have everything there. I mean, that's like, obviously there are things which are so exciting if you do them well, but if it's just a little gimmick you add like two things, I think I'm not sure, I didn't work out in most cases for me, because it's another thing you need to make sure to bring the batteries, the cable, and then if it's you need to do much more, and this is the difference to the juggling idea, because it is the juggling already. This is like the main performance, and you're adding stuff to this core thing. But if you're just like having the ring on your finger and you wanted to show off that you can do this and that, most people won't get it. And like it's like it needs to work for you because it frees your hands and you can do stuff with it you can't do different. Then it makes sense. But if it's like because I'm so geeky and so into electronics, I'm like, oh, you can do this and that and that. I have to stop myself. So that's my perspective on it. Like I have to stop myself in implementing stuff which doesn't really add that much performance value for the audience. And then in the end for me, because like if no one gets what I'm doing, it's like, I don't have to do it. I need to make great music and I need to feel great on stage. And that's the main subject.
Yeah, there's a lot of considerations besides just how weird your technology is.
Yes.
It can be a help, but it can also just be like a silly thing after a while.
Yeah.
So, well, cool, man.
Yes.
I'm keeping you late. I know, but it's been great talking to you.
It's really great.
A lot of interesting. I mean, just your experience with all this stuff is really, I think, important. Just to get out some of these concepts about how you plan a show and how you think about it and how you approach it. So we will send people to abletondrummer.com where they can check out, like, that's basically your home base, right?
Yes, that's the home base, and you find like online courses like for people who want to start attaching their electronic drums or their e-drum pads like the SPDS-X to Ableton. I have different courses, online courses on there.
The lighting course too, the course on lighting.
And yes, using DMXs with Ableton Live. And and then I have obviously Max for Live devices, which you find a lot of manuals on there, and there are a lot of free devices there as well. I have a few releases on Isotonic Studios as well, where you release stuff as well. And yes, and of course I do teach online as well. Or if you just have questions, a good place to ask things and to get connected is the Ableton Drummer Facebook group, of course.
Yeah,
yes.
We will put links to all of that in the show notes.
Perfect.
And I just want to thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. And should we mention the course special?
Yeah, we could do that. I'm gonna put it in the beginning.
Club special. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and you're also very generously for the month of October offering any of my music production club members 50% off the Melody Trigger device, the Max for Live device. So that's the one we were talking about, where you can send out the different melody lines and go back and forth. I think you said 16 different. That would be like 16 different drums, right? With playing different melodies.
16 sequences of up to 64 notes each.
So if I had a 16-piece drum kit, I could have that.
Okay. No, it's the concept is different because you actually use one device for one drum as one input. You can use like more drums for one device as well. And then you would switch to the next sequence.
Gotcha.
Let's say if you play the bass line with your kick drum and your melody with your hi-hat, you would have like two devices, one for the kick drum and one for the hi-hat. And then if you want to go to the next chord or to the next part, you hit another pad and then you switch the melody and the bass line on the same time on the two devices, and then you're playing your second sequence on those.
Yeah. Okay, that's cool. All right. So I misunderstood it a little bit. I'm thinking, I'm picturing like the device goes to all the pads, but that's even cooler that you can have the different sequences going and switch between the parts of your songs. So even better.
Yay.
Very cool. Thanks so much for that. And I hope people check that out. And next thing you know, maybe we'll have one day in the future when we can do our live performances again, you know?
Oh, yes.
This is a good time to work on it, though. You know, good time to get that stuff going and check out some of your courses to help with that.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. It's really great.
Yeah, it's nice to sit down with you again and catch up.
Perfect.
And thank you everyone else for listening. Head over to abletondrummer.com and have a great day.
Thanks, mate.